Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is me, your favorite bear, Annakuma, and I am here again today to talk to you about a new early access game I tried out the other day called Moonlight and Garland. Before we start, I will say this. I have only played 2 hours of the game so far. I wanted to go into this impressions video with a broad look at the game at first glance, but without having put hours and hours into it. The game, as I've said, is early access, therefore it's kind of in itself a first impression of what the game could be. I wanted to make this a very quick look at what you'd expect going into the game. Secondly, whilst this might end up sounding kind of negative, I wholeheartedly recommend this game. For anyone who likes life sims of any sort, this is a very interesting and extremely promising game. The only reason this video might come over as negative is whilst I don't believe the developers will ever see it, I want to see this game grow. So they're just little nitpicky things I want to see get better in the future. And to be fair, after writing and attempting to record this many times, I have seen the roadmap, which I will link in the description below, and a lot of my original criticisms have been taken away, as I know they do plan on sorting these things out later. But I just wanted you to know that I really love this game, and I do 100% recommend either buying it or at least wishlisting it and seeing where development goes. After saying all this, you might be wondering why I'm talking about a life sim. I've always kind of loved life sims, ever since playing Shenmue, which I know is an action game at its heart, but the life sim part of it was always what endeared me to it. I loved having to go off, get a job, and then have to spend my money on gacha machines, or feeding my pet cat, or in the arcades, and the social aspect of it all as well. Yakuza slightly scratches that itch for me, but I did then move on to games like The Sims and Stardew Valley, or even Sunhaven in the long run. I love these games. Being able to build a home, make my money, and make bonds with people has always been something I love. Moonlight and Garland is a very good mix of all of these games. Instead of being a farm life sim like Stardew or Harvest Moon or Sunhaven, it's a city life sim. Whilst gameplay is similar to those games, it gives me more of a Sims and Shenmue vibe to it. And one thing I really like is I'll be able to live some kind of normal life in a city, something I can't do at the moment with agoraphobia in real life. It is a wonderful blend of a whole bunch of games I already love, and the potential for it to be the game of my dream is immense. So let us, as always, start at the beginning. First up, a slight warning, the game does auto-recognize that you have a controller plugged in, or at least it did for me, and that made the menus extremely hard to navigate. So if you have a controller plugged in or you're having problems with the menus, just unplug any controller you have, and the problem should disappear. That's just a friendly tip from your friendly neighborhood bear. But to start with, you have your character creation, and though the character creation is honestly nothing to complain about, it's nothing to write home about either. It's there, it's adequate, and I feel the art style of the avatars aren't really my thing, but you have enough options to customize your character that I can't complain about it. I will, however, complain a little later about the art style of the avatars, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. 10 out of 10 to the game though for giving me barriers as an option. You might not have noticed, but I am a bear, and I do have barriers, so being able to have barriers in-game is a joy for me. After completing your very basic character creation, you're dumped on a train and you meet Ryan. Now Ryan is the only realtor in Garland apparently, or at least the number one, and it is very easy to see why, as he sits on a train all day meeting the new residents and poaching them before even stepping foot in the city. He tells you that you can rent your apartment from him, but that has to wait until the morning. First up, you head to the hotel where you meet Bargain Bin Owen Wilson, who shows you to your room, and you get a nice little tutorial via the TV about the map and how to use items and interact with the world, etc, etc. It's a very interesting way of doing it. What I will say is I would have liked the TV to have told me that the map was actually just an app on your in-game phone, because I apparently was stupid enough to run past the tourist information office a whole bunch on the first day, and a bit before finding it, and I was just really annoyed I didn't have a map. The world of Garland is massive, and if you are dumb like I apparently am, you will find yourself lost and kind of angry at the lack of map. The tourist information building seems like a pointless one to have, other than for the joke that Sage works at every building, a problem I'll talk about a bit later, and the possibility of having a mini-game job in it at a later date. Seeing as Garland itself is empty of human life, other than the NPCs that you can befriend, having a tourist information center seems a little off. I feel this is one of my biggest criticisms about Garland. In things like Stardew and Sunhaven, even The Sims, and especially Shenmue and Yakuza, the cities and villages all feel lived in. You can run around in Garland for an entire day and barely see a soul. Parks are empty, buildings just have Sage working in them, and it feels like the beginning of a zombie movie. I would love to see some more people and animals added to the map as static NPCs, especially in places like the football field, skate park, and the actual park. This isn't a huge problem right now, but going forward, having a city that feels this dead yet looks this beautiful, it's just going to be jarring, and I would love to see some life breathed into the game at some point. Back to what we're currently doing though. On day 1, or day 2, depending on how you look at it, you wake up in the hotel and have to go and find Ryan, who will rent you one of your brand new apartments. There are 4 to pick from with their own set of NPCs, a building manager, and its own little story. I'm guessing the stories will all be about renovating the building itself, but with its own pizzazz and character depending on the personalities of your building manager. I picked Cedar Court as it was in the historical part of town. My building manager is a grumpy old man called Leon. He has a lovely wife called Cecil, and our story is very much one of having to bring Leon around to the idea we can turn this building around and save it. But after picking your apartment, it basically just lets you do what you want, and this is pretty much where my list of criticism comes in. For the start, there are barely any jobs so far. You have the bog standard job board filled with fetch quests in your lobby. You can feed your sentient recycling bin for money, and apparently I totally missed out on a private investigator quest, but it really is bare bones right now, which is fine. It is, after all, as I keep saying, early access, and the part-time jobs are coming. I've talked about how empty the whole city feels, but that becomes even more obvious with the running gag that Sage works at every store all the time. It kind of works for Emmett in Sunhaven because it is a fantastical setting, but it just makes Garland feel even more empty. I want to see other people running those stores, other characters in those stores. You can make a story about Sage having to work so much to live by giving her a day job and a night job, and even closing her day job like twice a week and making her also work at a booth for something on those days. It doesn't need to be every store, and as I said, it just makes the entire thing seem super empty. A real big bugbear is also the avatar art though. Looking back on my recordings, some of them are fine, but I always go back to Leon and George. Leon is just a white bald dude, and that is fine, but his avatar just kind of looks so unfinished and weird that he stands out in a bad way. George, on the other hand, was the man I earmarked as my husband, because he looks like Donald Gleason, and who wouldn't want to marry Donald? He's a handsome man, and I love him, and I don't believe anyone else wouldn't. But the problem is, George has this lovely beard and even tattoos, but those are just both missing from his model. The tattoo I can understand, but there is no reason why this bearded beauty should be a babyface smooth baby in avatar mode. The character customization gives you the option of facial hair, so the fact that one of their NPCs who has a beard just doesn't have a beard on his model is really strange to me. I feel a lot of them lack a certain charm that other games have, and I think it could be saved just by going over them a little and making sure they stand out. Then again, I went back, as I said, over the recordings and noticed a lot of the portraits are actually pretty plain anyway, and that's fine. I love the art style and the characters, but it would just be nice for the main NPCs of the game to get a little more love than what they look like, or at least George and Leon. The people in the world you can talk to are very cool though. To balance some of this criticism out, I will say that I enjoyed talking to most of the people I found. They are all pretty unique, and I like that they feel like city people. In Stardew, Shane being a grumpy asshole to you stands out because everyone is so nice, but at the same time, everyone also knows you are joining their very small community. Other than the fact it feels like only 20 people live in the city, moving to a city and suddenly talking to random strangers is one way to probably get yourself beaten up in reality, so having them kind of question why you're approaching them, I really kind of enjoyed. The fact that you have some decent dialogue options to hit back at them also was a joy. And I can't fault the world they are trying to build out all. It is very nitpicky things I am complaining about. So let's talk about the world they've built. Other than the farm area, which is pretty plain and kind of ugly, and I wandered into it by accident, and I know they're working on it, but it's kind of plain and ugly at the minute. The city itself is beautiful. I love that the tall buildings will fade into the foreground when you go behind them. The fact they do this stops the city feeling small and gives it this grand feeling. Every area is slightly unique, but they look beautiful, and the buildings are wonderfully crafted. The green areas are completely delightful to walk through as well, especially the green in the center of the city. The Ferris wheel is 100% a highlight, and I do hope that they, in the future, use that in the festivals maybe a little bit, like having different scenarios playing out in the background. But just as it is at the minute, it is extremely beautiful and a highlight of the game. A couple more technical problems I had were the dialogue boxes for your choices very often just died. When I was picking my apartment, the one that let me say I was ready didn't pop up properly, and it took a second to realize that was even up in the corner. This also happened when I was logging out at one point. It very much is just something that is broken. You can see the box has kind of shrunk and not gone over the dialogue, and it's possibly even been fixed before I've even made this video, but it was something I noticed. So I'm also not a fan of the hotbar and hotkeys. Now this might shock you, being a Terraria and Stardew fan, but let me explain. Usually a hotbar of items will connect to your hotkeys. Whatever is first in the hotbar will be number 1, etc, etc. In this game though, you tab through the hotbar, and the number keys are assigned to your menu options. So 1 is my inventory, and 2 is my contact details, and so on and so forth. There is a reason games use I for inventory, M for map, escape for menus, and things like that, and it's because it just makes sense. I'd like to see them change up the hotkeys for the game. I do like having X as the button to unequip things. I hate always having to have something in my hands in Stardew, so unequipping things is a lovely touch, but I really need the hotbar to actually work like a hotbar. Something you need to get used to as well, but that I wouldn't say is a total negative, is using the items. I didn't notice at first, but you actually press on the arrows next to, I guess, the verbiage that shows you what you are doing with the given item and change it. It doesn't automatically decide what you're doing based on what the item is, so you can drop or give just about any item. I'm not against this, I don't hate it, but it does take some getting used to and can lead to idiots like me struggling to do basic things because I'm a fool. Again, these are tiny little nitpicks that I'm sure I'll either get used to or they'll change in the future and it'll be absolutely fine. Something I do love though are the dust bunnies. Having actual dust bunnies looking like bunnies just makes me so happy. I love them. The rain is also super nice. I'm hoping they have like blustery days as well and maybe snow. I do love a good rainy day, and I do hope they do get some rainy day music at some point. The one track we do have is extremely nice if repetitive, so a nice rainy day soundtrack would be nice. The birds flying away when you walk into them is also funny, and I love the option of the photography. I do feel they could add a little more to the photography option. It's very, very, very bare bones right now, and I say that a lot through this, but it's very bare bones, and I feel like they can expand on that in the future. With things like cooking, fishing, and crafting all coming, as well as mini games and jobs, the world looks like it's going to grow so much as the game picks up in development. But right now, as I keep saying, it is extremely bare bones. It's very relaxing to wander around, do a few bits and bobs, then sign out for the night, and that is fine. I don't mind that, but I do feel there's a lot of ambition behind the scenes and a lot of imagination, and I'd love to see this game, even after its full release, keep being worked on, like Stardew has, to add so much more. There's a lot of potential here, and it's exciting to see how it all turns out. But that is kind of all I have to say. I've really enjoyed my time with the game so far, and as I keep saying, I'm excited to see what happens next. 2 hours was not enough time, and between now and this time next year, where a potential full release is penciled in, I can see myself dumping over 100 hours into a game I got for pretty cheap. 100% wishlist this game if you don't trust early access, and see where it goes, or pick it up and help hopefully shape how this game grows. I know I'm super excited already to see what happens in the future, and after I finish this video, I'm gonna go straight back to the game and continue to see where it goes. Hell, I might even do a small series on the game exclusive for YouTube at some point to show it off some more. That is all I have time for today though. Thank you as always for putting up with my rambling. If you enjoy what you see, please leave a sub and a like on this video, I very much appreciate it. And for more of me, you can find me 4 days a week on twitch.tv/worker89, where I stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays and Sundays at 1 PM British time. We play all sorts of games all the time, and for this November, some of our highlights will be Ace Attorney Investigations, AI Somnium 2, and Night in the Woods. I also just recently started 3 Minutes to 8, which is a time loop game that is sure to keep me busy for a while. So please give me a follow over there. Links to my Discord as well are in the description. I'm also now posting art over on Tumblr, so I'll leave a link to that in case you want to see my crappy art, because I'm learning. As always, I apologize that this channel was just a glorious VOD dump, but as you can see, I'm working hard on some original content right now. I have a video in the making along with this one on a Keymailer game I played, and a few other point and click games have been recorded, I'm looking forward to making videos on all of them. I'm a huge point-and-click fan, and I feel there might be a few point-and-click reviews coming your way soon. But for now, thank you for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. Keep safe, make sure to feed your sentient recycling bins, and keep hold of your picnic baskets in your overly plain woodland areas. Thank you, and bye-bye.